and gentlemen, to our newest edition of BTC Spotlight Presents. Today we have with us a 20-plus year veteran as a wrestling official in the WWE, most notably, as well as Ring of Honor, who has also put out a book called The 3 Count, My Life in Stripes as a WWE Referee, as well as current host of Aftermath TV. We have with us the wonderful, the pleasant Jimmy Korderas. Jimmy, how are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for the introduction. Very few people would consider me pleasant, especially if they follow me on Monday nights, but I appreciate it.
Listen, for those that don't follow you, this man is a trip. I mean, what was it? Even the crickets were quiet?
Yeah, that was the Monday night one. Yeah, but I mean, like somebody tweeted me and said you can hear crickets, and I said I couldn't even hear crickets or something like that. It was that quiet. I mean, you know what?
Amazing.
Yeah, there's a difference between, in my opinion, between critiquing and just plain, being nasty. I mean, like I get people misunderstand the fact they say, well, how come you defend the WWE and stuff like that? And I don't defend them. What I do is I try to focus on positives. When there is a negative, instead of just ripping on it completely, I try to have fun with it. Like in other words, like I critique it in a tongue-in-cheek manner, so to speak. I try to have fun with it because That's what wrestling is supposed to be, is fun.
Right. You can't turn around. You got to sometimes take the negatives and turn them into the positives, in light of no matter what's going on. I mean, there are certain situations that you can't exactly turn into a positive, that it's always going to be a negative circumstance. But I'm sure you get what I'm saying with that.
Oh, of course. But then
it kind of sounded better in my head.
No. It makes sense. But at the same time, I notice that people tend to dwell on that stuff. Like if something negative and it's universally maybe agreed that, well, that wasn't really good. People tend to focus on that and stick with that, and it's like a constant point of contention as opposed to, okay, that sucked, didn't like it, okay, let's see what they do next. They don't move on, you know what I mean? It's constantly and I think before we got on here, I think that's the deal with Roman Reigns right now. People think it sucks that he got pushed ahead of someone like a Daniel Bryan. So to the hardcore community, he's their villain because he's not Daniel Bryan, because he was the guy that was put in that spot in place of the guy we wanted. I think that has a lot to do with why he is being booed so loudly now.
And see, I can play devil's advocate with that because now I'm more of a Daniel Bryan fan than a Roman Reigns fan because I know where Daniel Bryan came from, but in the same turn, I also know the lineage that Roman came from. And when the Shield first debuted, everybody looked and said, you know what, he's going to be that guy. And as soon as the guy they originally wanted didn't get the push, and he did, everybody hated him.
Yep.
And that's what it was.
That's exactly right. And it's funny because, like you said, he was the guy, when you looked at the guys at the Shield, and this is my own personal, of course this is, my opinion, but when I look at the 3 guys at the Shield, each of them had something different. I mean, you had Seth Rollins, who was your machine. The guy could do anything. He was your in-ring workhorse. Dean Ambrose, I guess, more the crazy, obviously the lunatic thing that they were playing up, but obviously offered something different, a little bit of edgier. But everybody looked at Roman, like you said, and said, this guy's got everything that the WWE wants in a major superstar. He's got the look.
Right.
He's got his athletic ability is very underrated. His timing and in-ring work is actually pretty good. He sells.
It has gotten better.
Yeah, and he's constantly improving. I know they harp on his promo skills, but there's a lot of guys out there that they like that are not great talkers as well. So like that, to me, that argument doesn't hold water because he's actually okay on the mic when given the right material. I think he suffered a lot from the fact that at times he was not given quality stuff to say. Let's leave it at that.
Right.
Tater
well,
tots.
I can say this much. Tater tots. See, now you're making me hungry, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But see, it's the fans. The fans, and I as a fan, and and I know even though you work for them, you as well as, aside from being in the industry, are a fan as well, And the fans are always saying, turn him heel, turn him heel. Well, at this point, Vince and Hunter and Kevin Dunn and all of them, they don't need to turn him heel now. The fans have already done that for him and for them. And like Roman Reigns has already stated, whether you're booing him or you're cheering him, at the end of his match, your ass is out of your seat.
That's exactly right. And I go back to, and it's funny because at WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, was sitting in the crowd live there, which was actually kind of cool, just on a separate note, like you said, because I'm still a fan at heart. So, being able to sit there amongst however many people, whatever you want to say, 100,000 or so. But watching, sitting there, I looked around. All I know, it was a huge crowd. Or sorry, huge. Right. I think it's pronounced huge now. But anyway, but looking at the reactions, and the most vocal, were negative reactions towards Roman Reigns, but there were large pockets of predominantly young people who were cheering Roman Reigns, but they were being drowned out by the boos. But the funny thing is, and it's funny because I said this to my co-host on Aftermath, Jackie Redmond, who was sitting with me in the audience. As soon as the match ended and the 1, 2, 3 and Roman went over, the crowd popped. It was like, it was, and people will say, "Wow, it's because he speared Stephanie right before." No, the 1, 2, 3 happened. The crowd popped, and then there was this like minuscule silence for a second where they went. You almost thought to themselves like, "Oh, wait, that's right. We don't like this guy." Then they started to boo really loud, but for that split second when the 1, 2, 3 happened, it was like they got the reaction they wanted. They got the big pop. So it's kind of like it's a cat and mouse game now. And for turning him heel, I think people say to me that, well, look, they turned Hulk Hogan heel and it worked. I said, yeah, but the crowd wasn't screaming for Hulk Hogan to turn heel at the time. It was a big surprise. It was out of nowhere. They didn't expect it. Now the audience is more in tune with what's going on, and they have a greater knowledge of some of the inner workings and that sort of stuff. But, at that time, it wasn't like fans are going, oh, I want Hulk Hogan to turn heel and join the NWO or join the Outsiders. It's a different time, different era, and it's harder to nowadays to get that kind of like surprise thing on the fans, so to speak.
Right, because back then, 20 years ago, you had the internet, but not to the extent that it is now. See, I grew up, I'm in my early 30s. I grew up in that era, So back then, I still remember watching Bash at the Beach and seeing Hulk Hogan coming out. The guy that I followed, besides Shawn Michaels, that I followed, I'm saying, oh, my God, here comes Hulk Hogan to save the day. And then it's just like, what the hell just happened? And I felt like my entire childhood was just shattered. And I was like, oh, my God. And nowadays it's, oh, John Cena. Vince McMahon wanted to turn John Cena heel 5 years ago, but then chose not to. And, they want to do this, but they wanted to do Undertaker versus John Cena, but, Kevin Dunn wanted to do this whole engagement angle. And, okay, so we're going to go with that instead. And it's like, it takes the fun out of it. It has lost its shock factor, so to speak.
Yeah. For all the good, it's not all bad. The internet, what the internet has done to the wrestling industry, it's been very helpful, but at the same time detrimental, especially when it comes to stuff like spoilers. When the hardest thing to do nowadays is to surprise the audience with something different and unique because there are guys out there, and this isn't a knock on them, but there are guys out there who are journalists, wrestling journalists, and that's their job, is to report news. And if if they hear something that's kind of a little bit insider, it's their job to report it, unless they're told specifically otherwise. Listen, don't say anything. This is like just between you and I, off the record, so to speak, kind of thing. And one of the things like people say to me says, well, why don't you on our show Aftermath, which is a little bit different than most shows out there? They say, well, why don't you report on the stuff and the rumors and stuff like that? I said, we're not a news show. We are a, we critique shows. You know what I mean? It's different. I'm not the investigative journalist who goes out there to get news. I'm the guy who gives my opinion. So I'm not going to give my opinion on rumor, that kind of stuff. And I prefer not to tweet stuff because, let's be honest, I still have friends there, and I hear things from time to time, but it's not my place to, give away the store, so to speak. It's I'll leave that to others.
Right. Well, speaking of things that you've done, how did you get into the, refereeing? Because I remember hearing and reading that your first match that you refereed, I believe, was Special Delivery Jones and Red Demon.
Yep. Yeah.
Back in, I want to say, 85?
No, 87, actually. 85, I started working for WWF president at the time, Jack Tunney, who had his office here in Toronto, which was kind of cool. But it was in 86, sometime I want to say latter part of 86, where Pat Patterson suggested to Jack, and I won't do my bad Pat Patterson French accent here, but
oh, come on, we love impressions here.
Yeah, that was a hard one to do. I mean, everybody does Macho Man and stuff like that. Pat's harder. But Pat went to Jack.
Either that or doing the great Dusty Rhodes.
oh yeah, Dusty Rhodes, if you will, yes. So Pat goes to Jack and says, look, well, we got the kid here. He called me the kid, but he's setting up the ring and he's waiting for the show to end. And after the show to tear it down, he says, why don't we use him during the show? He just sits there, really, waiting. Why don't we train him to be a referee? And Jack was not on board with the idea at first, and then Pat convinced him. And then Pat just came up to me and said, what I need you to do is go get a black pants, which are easy. Get a powder blue shirt, a black bow tie, and black sneakers, and carry it with you. And we'll train you to be a referee. And I said, cool, absolutely. And waited a few months, and nothing was happening, and nobody was really training me or anything. I was like, a lot of it was my fault because I didn't ask. I thought like, hey, is somebody going to train me or what? I'm kind of like sitting back and going, why isn't anybody training me? And then one day in Newmarket, Ontario, Chief Jay Strongbow, who's the agent that day, says, Jimmy, you got your ref gear with you? I said, yep. He says, go put it on. You're reffing tonight. And I'm like, but I was about to say, like, I don't know what to do. But he said, hey, what's the matter? You don't feel like working tonight? I said, absolutely I do. He said, well, go get changed. And I had the one match, which you said was SD Jones versus the Red Demon, who was Jose Luis Rivera under a mask. And I went to SD and I said, SD, I'm reffing your match tonight. I've never reffed a match. What do I do? He says, just listen to me and, I'll talk you through it. You'll be fine. And he did. Mind you, I was very robotic. I was very nervous. I was stiff. You probably could have nicknamed me Block A Wood that night. I was so stiff. But I got through it, and then, as they say, experience from there on, and a lot of help from others like obviously Tim White and the Hebners and Billy Red Lions up here in Canada, and others. The late Joey Morello all kind of chipped in and helped me out, which was awesome.
That's actually really cool, because I've always wondered how, personally, how people get in to be referees, because I know some guys, they used to end up, like, for example, Teddy Long. Teddy Long, has stated how he got into it and everything. how they seen him backstage, and he's just like, hey, we need someone to referee this match here. Can you do this for us? And he just literally got thrown to the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys end up being, at one point, guys that wanted to be wrestlers. And see, I still use the old school term of wrestler, not necessarily sports entertainers. And I catch a lot of slack from people about that, believe me. That wanted to go that route, but then, either they got injured or they just didn't make the cut, so they went to still be in the business and chose the path of an official.
Right. Yeah, for me, it was a little bit different. As a youngster, obviously, you have these thoughts in your mind, hey, it'd be kind of cool to be a wrestler, a sports entertainer, whatever you want to call it. But, it takes a special kind of athlete, special kind of person to be able to withstand the day-to-day grind that goes with that. I mean, it is not an easy way to make a living. I mean, I hate when people use the term fake, because when you say the word fake, it makes it sound like nothing hurts, and this is very physical and very punishing business on the body. You're taking bumps every night, or at least 250 nights a year. Not to mention,
right.
If at the performance center where you're doing it almost every day, so it does take a toll on your body. And for me, when I was asked if I wanted to referee, I thought a few things, and when I spoke to a few people, they suggested, that would be good, because if you're good at it, you can do it for a long time. And wrestling, as a wrestler, there's very few people who have very, very long careers doing that. So,
if I'm not mistaken, isn't Earl Hebner still refereeing, and he's probably close to 70?
He's in his 60s, yeah, and he's still working at TNA. So good for him if he could still do it, and more power to him. And his son Brian is there, who's basically holding down the fort as far as officials go for TNA. Who turned out to be a really good referee. So, the apple didn't fall far from the tree there.
What's that?
I said the apple didn't fall far from the tree there, that's for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now, see, you mentioned being physical in the ring. Now, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't there an incident between you and Jimmy Hart at WrestleMania? I think it was 4.
Yeah, I have to set the record straight on that. I think because Jimmy took the heat for me. What happened was during the match between Honky Tonk Man and Brutus Beefcake. Beefcake had Honky in the sleeper hold. Jimmy jumped on the apron. When I went over to get him to jump down, I turned my back. He clocks me with the megaphone. Now, the urban legend is that he knocked me out with a megaphone, but it wasn't Jimmy that knocked me out. I did get knocked out, but I did it to myself, because when I took the face plant bump in the ring, my chin hit the canvas and I went black. So it wasn't Jimmy that knocked me out. I did it to myself.
But it was more of a chain reaction. So it wasn't initially his fault. It was more or less on you, on how you landed.
Exactly.
And that's
because,
what caused
yeah, it's WrestleMania, so you want to, any bump you take at a WrestleMania, you want it to look really good. So, unfortunately, I made it look a little better than I thought, I guess. Hopefully, at least anyway.
I'm going to have to go back and rewind and watch this and be like, yep, there it is. There's the exact point.
Yeah.
I mean, you've wrestled a lot of interesting matches in your life. I mean, one of them was a Kiss My Ass match.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, but, that's kind of weird and kind of cool at the same time, because I'm trying to think throughout the history of professional wrestling or the WWE or sports entertainment or anybody, whatever, like I said, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if there's ever been another Kiss My Ass match. So that's kind of like a weird feather in my cap to say, hey, I'm the only ref out there that's refed a Kiss My Ass match.
Right, and not only that, but you're one of the very few officials that, I still remember the referee strike. That you're one of the few officials that I've noticed that have been in the storyline, so to speak, more times than anybody else.
It's weird. It just happened to work out that way. As far as the strike storyline, that wasn't the intention when that started at all. That was kind of like we fell into that by accident because it was in 1999. I had just gotten married and I got the okay to take 2 weeks off for the honeymoon. So we went on honeymoon, and obviously while I was gone, I wasn't watching the product because if I did, my wife would kill me. But anyways, it's a honeymoon. What are you going to do?
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that on your honeymoon.
No. No matter how big a fan you are, you're not allowed to. So I get back from the honeymoon. It's like the first TV when I get back, and it's like everybody, hey Jimmy, how are you? How was the honeymoon? Blah blah blah. And then I run into Hunter in the hallway. He says, hey Corduroy. He used to call me Corduroy. That was his nickname for me. He says, welcome back. How does it feel to be on strike? Ha ha ha. Kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, kind of funny. I said, maybe we could actually do a scene where the guys are picketing outside and I show up and go, what the hell's going on? And he said, we're on strike. Where have you been? I said, I've been on my honeymoon. I didn't know this was going on. They said, well, grab a sign and join in. And I'm like, no, I can't because I just got married. I can't go on strike. Can't afford to.
Right.
And then I go to walk through the picket line and they all waffle me with the signs or something. And then they come back later in the show and there I am all beat up walking around with them with a sign. And he thought that was funny. And then he got this look on his face like, oh. And then he just, hey, JR, come here. Listen to this. And he rifled off this idea. He says, how because we've got the scab referees who were like Tom Pritchard and Harvey Whippleman and Brooklyn Brawler at the time. So he said, how about we get Korderas to be a scab ref? He'd be the only guy who'd break the picket line. And then it just went from there, and they said, yeah, let's do it. And it was like, so something became part of a storyline that started off as just a joke, which is kind of cool, actually.
Right, which ended up turning out to be something fun in the long run.
Oh yeah, I had fun except until the payoff when they kicked my butt at the pay-per-view. But
well, unfortunately, that you had a loss on your record then. But I mean, hey, we've all been there. We all can't be Michael Cole and be one and done and have that one victory.
Hey, he should be proud of that. What the heck? Not a lot of guys get to do that.
Exactly. And actually, it comes to mind. Speaking of, like you mentioned, Unforgiven in 1999. You mentioned you getting married in '99. It seems that 1999 was a really rough year. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe, if my memory serves me right, because I was younger, we lost Owen Hart. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you were supposed to be the referee for that match between the Blue Blazer and the Godfather. Is it all right if I touch on that? Or
sure. Yeah. I mean, like, it had to be the single worst day of my professional career, that's for sure, and one of the worst personally because being so close to the situation and like I really didn't talk about it with anybody. It's I talked a lot about it in I did a chapter in my book dedicated to Owen. That was really the outside of my immediate family the first time I actually talked about it somewhat publicly and my feelings and what I was going through and not to make this more about me, but how close I became to being part of that tragedy. It was a lot. I mean, and I have to give a lot of credit to people like JR and a lot of the guys like Undertaker and Triple H and the guys who came to me the next day and offered their support, and Vince as well. And it's I know it's cliched when you say, guys are like a family on the road, but when something as tragic like that happens, that's when you really realize how much we all lean on each other when we are on the road. It's through tragedy we had, we ended up discovering that, we're all basically a road family kind of, sort, or should be, at least try to treat each other as such anyway.
Right. I mean, I've heard examples of that. Speaking of other tragedies, well, I mean, I don't want to sit on the Owen thing too long, but I mean, I remember seeing him. I guess the only way I could say it is, him coming down, and I mean, can you possibly take us through maybe some of the events that, because I know they didn't show anything going on in the ring on camera. I know that they kept everything on the announcers, so some of us are still in the dark. You know what I mean about the events. Well, could you possibly maybe touch on it a little bit?
Well, just basically from what my standpoint, like, I didn't see the actual fall. They had just had a hardcore match prior to this match, and they had a pre-tape promo with the Blue Blazer and Kevin Kelly playing on the Titantron, and we were trying to like clear out the ring from debris and stuff like that, and the lights were kind of turned down so that people could see the Tron a little bit better while we were cleaning up, and then all in one, like in a split second, I was holding the top rope and I was kicking stuff out of the ring and moving towards the corner, and I felt at the same time it was kind of like I felt something brush against the side of my head and shoulder, and the top rope had snapped out of my hand and came back and like snapped my fingers, and I was like, the first thing that popped into my head at that time was like, somebody either threw something or the top rope was snapped. So I'm kind of like looking around to see, and I see that the top rope was still intact, and then as I turned around, there was Owen lying in the ring, and I walked over and I leaned over and kind of called out to him a couple of times and got no response, and then I just kind of panicked and started calling for help, and that's when everybody started showing up at ringside, and they tried to resuscitate him, and they put him on the ambulance, and it was just chaos. I mean, crazy.
I mean, one can only imagine. I mean, I myself know what it's like to be injured doing something wrestling. I had studied a lot when I was younger, watching the shows and everything and learning on my own how to fall, more or less, the homegrown way. And somebody actually grabbed me, and we were wrestling around, and someone grabbed me in a full Nelson and suplexed me in the wrong way and actually broke my C4, C5. So I know what it was like for all the traumaticness to happen. Everybody not knowing what's going on, and everybody running around trying to do this and do that and figure things out. And I mean, obviously I wasn't to that extent, or else I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about this. But I have a general idea of what, the hecticness that can occur when something drastic happens in, a match, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically, I mean, you can prepare for a lot of things, but how do you prepare for something like that? It's impossible, to foresee anything like that happening. I mean, like, you do take precautions as much as you can, but when it comes to something like that, it's like obviously something that nobody saw coming. So.
Right, and I've noticed WWE handles situations very well. The Caribbean strap match between Austin and Savio Vega, when they had that storm and all the power went out. They handled it very well. With the Owen situation, they handled that very well. So they're very professional and very good at what they do with that, in my opinion. And like I was mentioning with, Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. For the most part, they do. No, for the most part, they do handle things, very well and professional. And again, that was one of those days that I know there's been criticism for them for continuing the show that day, but I'm not defending the decision, but at the same time, it's again something that really has never happened before that I know of. Especially in North America. I don't know if it's happened elsewhere in the world. So nobody knew how to react, and it was kind of like, before we knew exactly the extent of what had happened, it was like, okay, let's move on. And then once we found out that Owen had passed, it was kind of like there was this weird, like, the people who were still left to go on were told that if they didn't want to go on, they didn't have to. But it was kind of like they were given the choice. And even the next night on the tribute, the Owen tribute on Raw, anyone who didn't want to perform didn't have to perform, and anybody who felt like it, more than welcome to do it. And it was a night where storylines were thrown out the window and all that stuff, and it was just meant to be a tribute to Owen,
Right, and it was just like when Eddie passed away, and I've seen photos of you and Eddie. It's just like, when Eddie passed away, all storylines were thrown out the window, and it was just everybody was out there to do it for him.
Exactly, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, and again, you really, like I said earlier, you really don't realize what these people that you have a connection with on the road mean to you until tragedy strikes. And it's unfortunate that sometimes it takes a tragedy to realize that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's funny because you mentioned that, and I had the privilege of meeting Darren Drozdov years ago, and I'm still in touch with him from time to time. When he broke his neck.
Yes. And
it's funny because one of the CNAs there said, we have a guy here that wrestles, and I was always a fan of Droz, the look and everything. Plus, he was from my neck of the woods. I'm from South Jersey, where he was from.
Oh, right.
And I met the guy, and I'm like, holy crap, it's Droz. And he actually asked if he could write an article about me on WWE.com when he used to do Droz's 2 cents.
Oh, cool.
And did a full article on me, which was really, really cool. If I could come across it, I'll send it over to you one of these days.
Cool.
But he told me how it was the same situation. Everybody was like a family because the rehab that he had gone to, Hunter was in and out, Taker, Austin, Vince. A lot of the guys were in and out checking on him to see how he was doing.
Right. It is. And like, not to get off topic, but, people have these perceptions of how people like Vince McMahon are, or how Triple H is, and Undertaker and all these guys, because they see them on TV, and of course, stuff gets said about them in public, and like I said, it's a kind of a perception, but it's amazing when you get to see the real them. You know what I mean? Like
right.
At work, Vince is like 100% focused on work, but it doesn't mean that Vince doesn't like to have fun at times too. I've seen
heard
them both.
The stories.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, he does eat, sleep, crap, everything the business. You know what I mean? He's a workaholic. He definitely is. He's 24/7 on the job. But at the same time, you occasionally get to see the other side, that other side of Vince. You know what I mean? Same with
right.
Hunter, even though he's an executive now, still in a sense is one of the boys. You know what I mean? He really hasn't changed, other than now he can afford a lot of stuff that he couldn't before. But other than that, he's
right.
still the same guy.
Hunter go from, well, I was going to say, to see Hunter go from the position he was at, because you mentioned you see them they're perceived as one thing, but really they're this way, and they're supposed to stay basically, well, I'll just put it this way, in character in certain aspects. But we've seen at Survivor Series when Shane got knocked out, Randy Orton was checking on his kids. You've seen a kid crying ringside. Triple H broke character and told the kid it's okay and gave the kid a hug. Take a guy like Triple H that everybody turns around, and we've all heard the stories. We've all heard people say the only reason Hunter got where he is because of who he married. Did it help a little bit, in my opinion? Maybe. But would he have still gotten to the point he's at? Yes, because of his ethic, his work ethic, But you take a guy that basically broke the lines back in Madison Square Garden with the Clique, and he took the brunt of everything because they couldn't attack Shawn, they couldn't punish Shawn, they couldn't punish the other guys, Kevin, Scott, and Shawn. So who did they punish? The new guy. That year Austin won, from my understanding, was supposed to be the year of Hunter.
Yep.
And they said, Paul, you're sitting on the back burner, you're getting squashed by the Ultimate Warrior, and we're going to go from there.
Yeah, he did. He took it like, so the old say, he took it like a man. And then eventually it paid off for him. And then it's also the other little things. And you mentioned marrying the boss's daughter. Does that have something to do with it? To say no, it doesn't would be disingenuous. Obviously, what that does is it just gives him a little more of an avenue to present his ideas. You know what I mean? It's just that his ideas will get heard first. You know what I mean? It puts you at that. Doesn't mean your ideas are going to be implemented. It just means your ideas get to be presented in a timely fashion, so to speak. And I argue that if it wasn't for Triple H, we wouldn't have the phenomenon that we have now in NXT, because that was all his brainchild, his idea, his vision of how to prepare the future of the business, and especially in today's day and age where you don't have the territories anymore to go to get your talent. I mean, there's a lot of great indie talent out there, but they need to be honed for the big stage, so to speak. I mean, some guys, you get the exceptions where guys are ready. You get your Samoa Joes, and you get your Shinsuke Nakamura's, and you get your Bobby Roodes and guys like that who could. AJ Styles, no question, who can come in and go straight to the main roster. But there's a ton of great talented guys out there who just need a little tweaking, so to speak. You know what I mean? They need that.
Right.
They're great raw talents, but they need polishing. And NXT is a great place for them to not only polish guys that are good, but also to teach guys and to train guys. And it's much more than just professional wrestling down there. They teach they'll teach you different languages if you want to learn a new language. They teach you about finances and how to handle your money. They teach you about everything. It's so different now as opposed to, like you said, we talked about earlier, being thrown to the wolves. That's basically what the business was when you started. You were thrown to the wolves, and kind of like you had to learn your lessons by talking to veterans and kind of on-the-job training, so to speak.
Right, and now it's more or less like you're still talking to veterans, but it's a different aspect. Like last week, I had a guy by, I don't know if you've ever heard of Keith Lee. He's big in Evolve now. He's been hugely talked about as one of the rising stars in the industry now. He is a 300-pound. His name is Keith. Keith, and his last name is Lee, Lee. He is Forbes magazine and ESPN have been talking about him. They've already did a ranking of like the top 10 guys that are rising and have gotten better since the beginning of this year, and he's on the list at number 3, and like Okada is number 1. This guy is if you get a chance, look him up. Phenomenal guy. He is a 300-pound man that moves like a cruiserweight. I'm talking corkscrew planches, backflips, the whole nine.
Right. Wow.
Big guy. And he mentioned going down to the Performance Center a couple years ago. And this was when, Dusty was still around. He's still big down there. And he said that, he almost hung it up. He almost hung the boots up because he felt that, like his promo work wasn't there. He didn't make the cut and everything like that. But you had guys like, he mentioned that you had guys like William Regal, Dusty Rhodes, Dusty's like, baby, you got to do this. And, he listened to him, and it kept him from hanging up his boots. Guys like Jim Ross, even guys like Joey Mercury,
right.
and basically kept him in doing the business, said, look, just keep working on it. And now he's a rising star, and from what I've read and what I've seen, he was the biggest star WrestleMania weekend that wasn't signed by the WWE.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to keep an eye out on this young man, but it's cool. It's kind of funny though. It's a lot of it has to do with timing as well. I mean, you look at some other great athletes out there that the WWE has signed, and you look at them and on paper you say to yourself, this guy's a can't miss, and then all of a sudden, you're watching and you're going, I don't get why he's not connecting with the audience. And it's funny, and that's the other challenge of today's wrestling audience, and I know that a lot of the hardcore and diehard fans know who people are because through the internet, and that's one of the great things, as we talked about earlier with the internet, is that because of the internet, we get to know these stars that we never otherwise would get to hear about. And it's really cool, and there's so many ways now you can absorb content and see these guys and check them out and that sort of stuff. But the challenge with a company as global as WWE is these stars that are coming in from elsewhere, whether it's Evolve or ROH or New Japan or whatever, have to connect with a greater audience, not just the hardcore audience, and that's who the WWE targets. The hardcore fan's going to tune in, whether they tune in to complain, whether they tune in to like it, whatever it is. They're going to tune in. The battle
right.
The battle is getting that broader audience that tunes in occasionally from time to time to check out. Oh, I haven't seen wrestling in a while. Let's see what's going on. You want to try to attract them, and it's all, and people are easily blamed that the creative for some guys not connecting with the audience, and that's an easy crutch. But at the same time, it's sometimes up to the talent to make lemonade out of lemons.
Right. Like prime example, like we spoke before about the Crickets. That was in reference to Apollo Crews. The guy is one of the most athletically gifted guys I have seen step foot in the ring.
Right.
But me and the guy Chris that co-hosts our recap shows with us, we have both stated he's too smiley. He needs attitude. Like he just stands there and just smiles, and he's always happy. And as a fan, I can't get behind someone that's like that. I want him to be able to see a guy that I know if he needs to get down and dirty and he's going to get mean and aggressive, he's going to do it.
No, I totally get it because it's being a happy, smiley guy is all good, but you have to have that switch that you be able to that
right.
flips. There's got to be that other gear. There's got to be more than just this guy's a great athlete. He's a nice guy and he's a great athlete. Like you take a guy like Sami Zayn, for example, who is both, in my opinion, one of the best wrestlers on the roster.
Pound for pound.
Yeah, exactly. And I know people are liking him because he's developing a character that they can relate to and connect with. Like everybody. I remember when he first signed, and everybody said, "I can't believe they're taking the mask off him." That's his thing. Why are they taking the mask off him? How's he going to get over? Look, he got over. But not only. Yeah, exactly. So it's not just a gimmick that works. It's not just you need an entire package to connect with the audience, and that's what a lot of fans seem to overlook.
Right, and I've noticed a lot of people gravitate because they're like, well, this guy needs to win this guy needs to win that. And I've mentioned before, you got your guys like Jinder Mahal. The guy busted his hump, to get where he's at, and has significantly improved. So I think the push is great, And then you get, some guys that are getting them title pushes because of what they can do. But then you get guys that are overlooked, and then they're made more of the comic relief to an extent, but people don't realize the background that they have. Prime example is a man that you've co-hosted your show many times with, Santino Marella.
Yep.
From my understanding, he has a legit MMA background. I mean, he's I believe, 2-time Intercontinental Champion, former multiple-time United States Champion, Tag Team Champion. They just didn't give him the chance to really go into it in terms of the rankings.
Yeah, Santino was who I love, Santino or Anthony Corelli, legit. He's a legit badass, basically. I mean, it's overlooked because he's not that tall. Let's be honest, he's not that tall. But he's a former judo champion. He's a legit badass. But he was able to see if he'd have come into the WWE. It's kind of as a judo guy or whatever, as a shoot fighter guy or whatever. I don't know if it would have worked. If he'd have connected with the audience as well, because he's also one of the funniest people you'll ever meet. Outside of his persona in the ring, he's freaking hilarious. And he's one of the funniest people to be around all the time. He's one of those guys you need that guy on the road that keeps everything light, that keeps you sane with laughter. He's one of those guys. It almost to his detriment, because he's funny. Excuse me, and he was able to portray that in his Santino character, it kind of almost half pigeonholed him into that quote-unquote comedy character when he could have been so much more, because he was, he had the ability. Because in OVW he was Boris, the Russian shoot fighter guy, and then all of a sudden it was like he fell into the Santino thing, and again, a guy who took a gimmick and made it his own, and was able to flourish with it and get over with the audience. He may not have been able to sell tickets like a John Cena, but he was part of the package.
Exactly, and you get guys like nowadays that are given the opportunity. Prime example, Bray Wyatt. He comes in his husky hairs and falters horribly. They say, when you think of something, come to us about it. And he comes up with this Bray Wyatt gimmick that, I feel was, I can't remember the guy's name from the 90s, but it was almost the same look with the white pants and the Hawaiian shirt. That's it. Thank you. Waylon Mercy.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think Waylon Mercy was way before his time. And Bray Wyatt took it as an inspiration and ran with it, and now he's on top of the WWE.
Oh yeah, and I know people's biggest criticism with regards to Bray Wyatt is, wait a minute, he hasn't won any major feuds, and he won the WWE title in February at the Elimination Chamber, but lost it at WrestleMania, and they're never pulling the trigger. The guy's in the top of the card pretty much for the last couple of years, and he's got an entertaining character that engages the audience. And whether you complain about his win-loss record or whatever, at the same time, when his music hits and he comes out, you look at the arena, it's lit up like crazy.
Right, and not only that, but you want to talk about his win-loss record, say, example, WrestleMania. He hasn't won a match at WrestleMania. But look who he's going against: The Undertaker, Randy Orton, John Cena.
Yeah.
He's had these high-profile matches against some of the biggest names in the industry, if not the biggest right now.
Exactly, and you know, there's no shame in losing to him. If he hung his boots up tomorrow,
right? If he hung his boots up tomorrow, he's already, you know, he's already there. He's already made it.
Yeah, and the other thing that a lot of the audience it seems to overlook nowadays is that in the words of good old JR, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And he's a young guy. He's 29 years old, not even maybe 30. Right. You know, he's still got his prime years ahead of him. And you know, knock on wood that he stays healthy too. You know, and it's amazing. I like to compare it to like my new comparison now. It's like in golf. You have you know, Phil Mickelson, who couldn't win the Masters for so long. You know, he was always a bridesmaid, never a bride. He finally won the green jacket. And people were just saying, okay, he got lucky. Let's see what goes from there. You know what I mean? Now it's Sergio Garcia. Right. Sergio Garcia hadn't won a major in his long career, you know, and finally wins one at the Masters this year, you know, and, the monkey is off his back, so to speak. Bray Wyatt finally won the big one, but not at WrestleMania. But it's a work in progress. Let's see where it goes. Like, you know, fantasy booking wise, what I'd love to see, in my opinion, is the Hardys becoming broken due to the influence of Bray Wyatt.
And you know, we were discussing that before, and I know that Vince was not big on the broken gimmick. He wasn't. But then he started hearing delete, delete, delete. And you can catch signs of Matt doing it in and out of character a lot. I'm just fearing that they're going to go back to the version 1.0 Matt. And that one, not many people were a fan of. Let's face it, you know. And I know they've wanted Jeff back for a long time, ever since he got sobered up and everything. And the only reason they now want to touch Matt was because of this broken Hardy gimmick.
Well, you know, it's amazing because with what Matt has been able to do is kind of reinvent himself, so to speak, with this broken character. And although I do find it entertaining, it's kind of like one of those deals for me. My own personal opinion on this is, it's cool, but at the same time, it's a little bit too much. I mean, like it's so over the top. It's crazy entertaining. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And what
I mean, he literally stayed in character 24/7.
Yeah, what I'd like to see personally is a little bit of a hybrid version of that. You know, and maybe like little tweaks here and there, and kind of, if they, like I said, if they can mesh the two into a kind of a deal with Bray Wyatt, I think it'd be actually kind of cool. Having broken
almost
that
like
Hardy
a new Wyatt family.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, there's one addition that I would like them to add, and you know, I want to mention this before we start running out of time because we're coming down. Is Bo Dallas? You know, when Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt were running the independent circuit as a tag team, they were very good, and they kind of faltered with Bo Dallas. He got lost in the shuffle. And I think that if they put him under the influence of his brother, because let's face it, we're not stupid. We know that they're related. You can obviously tell.
Right.
You put him under the influence of Bray and turn him into the family, you know. And I think that could be a revamping for Bo Dallas's career.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you talk about, again, underrated superstars, Bo Dallas is really, really very good. If you watched any of his stuff from early NXT days, people know that. But again, sometimes a reinvention of someone's character works well. I think in this case it can work with him aligning with his brother and creating a true, so to speak, Wyatt family. But
right.
Again, it's all in the way it's presented. It has to be presented in the right way and not seem forced,
Exactly. It's just all a matter of how they do things. But we're like I said, we're coming down on time. We're under the 5-minute mark. I just want to let everybody know, if you haven't gone out to get it yet, I'm not going to lie, I haven't had the opportunity to go out and get it yet, but I plan on it this weekend, and that's no lie. Go and get Jimmy's new book, 3 Count, The Life and Stripes of a WWE Official. And you've heard some of his stories thus far and his opinions on, the industry now. I can guarantee you won't go wrong. Jimmy, is there anything you want to say to the fans, man? Anywhere they can follow you,
Yeah. You know what? I just want to say to all the fans out there, that support professional wrestling or sports entertainment, keep doing it, man. I mean, the reason we do it is because we enjoy it. It's for me, it's still a passion of mine all these years later, and just support your local guys if you like it. Your indie wrestling in your area, because I do a little bit, very little, but there's an organization here in Toronto, if I could plug them for a second. They're called Smash Wrestling.
By all means, plug them.
Yeah, Smash Wrestling here, based here in Toronto. They seem to have developed quite a following, and they're a good group of guys, and you could see the passion there, and so I join them and help out. Like, it's pretty much once a month. It's my once a month fix to kind of get a little bit of exercise myself, so to speak. And I have a lot of fun with it, and they bring in some great talent as well as some great local guys. As far as social media, you can catch me at Jimmy Korderas on Twitter. I have a former WWE referee Jimmy Korderas fan page on Facebook. And if you're in Canada, you can catch Aftermath every Tuesday night at 7:30, right before SmackDown Live, where myself, Jackie Redmond, the former Santino Marella, AC as we call him, and Nug Nargang, break down the week in WWE and give our opinions and predictions and stuff like that. It's basically what I like to call the Talking Dead of wrestling, for lack of a better term. Yeah, we don't get too inside. We don't get too in depth with like I said, news and rumors. We just give our opinions, and that's basically what we do, and it's fun.
I'm more about the opinion shows myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. We critique. We do critique, but we also talk a lot about what we like. So.
Right. Well, on that note, follow us on Twitter at BodySlamTheComp. Follow us on YouTube at BodySlamTheCompetition.com, and follow us on Facebook at BodySlamTheCompetition. And don't forget to follow us here on Blog Talk Radio. And this Friday, Jimmy, if you want to listen in this Friday, I will be having one of the greatest managers, in my opinion, Sonny Ono. I'll be doing an interview with him this Friday.
Oh, very cool.
And it should be pretty good.
Yeah, that should be awesome, especially considering he's one of the managers you don't hear a lot from. So it'd be fun to hear from him.
Definitely. So it'll definitely be something to listen out for. Again, Jimmy, thank you so much. I know it's been a little back and forth trying to get a hold of each other for this, but I greatly, greatly appreciate you coming on. I know the fans do as well, and we would love to have you back again, and we can just do what our the opinions like we were doing before, and just make it a show out of it.
Absolutely. Anytime. Just give me a buzz if I work it in. I could work it in. I don't mind. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you having me on. I had fun.
As did I, man. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you, Jimmy Korderas. And go out, buy his book, 3 Count, The Life and Stripes of a WWE Official. And I will see you guys Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, for my Spotlight interview with Sonny Ono. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.